questions?
Hi, Francis. I am new to this.
What's your name?
Akin. Akin. It's A-K-I-N. Akin.
A-K-I-N. Okay.
Closer? Okay. Akin. I'm new to this. I'm reading, and I'm trying to understand and make sense of what I'm reading. So, we say the word is an illusion, and I've been reading that, for example, your computer. I'm looking at it, it is just a color. And what is the reality of that color is seeing. Without awareness, you cannot see, so it's all awareness. So, when you look at everything, everything is within your awareness, but that doesn't explain to me everything is made out of awareness. So, my question is this world real?
Okay. There are two questions in your question. There is a question, is this world real? But then you said, okay, this, I don't remember, you say it appears in awareness, but it doesn't mean it is made of awareness, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, I would have to explain why it is made of awareness. And regarding the other question, is this world real? We have to define two things. One, what does world mean in this case? And two, what real means. You see? So, I will start perhaps with the second, with this one. What does real mean, and what does this world mean? Okay. Our human experience is on the one hand, is twofold. The consciousness or awareness, for me, these two words are synonyms, that perceives, and the perceptions. And the perceptions can be put in three categories: bodily sensations, thoughts, images, dreams, images in the mind, and external sense perceptions, right? So which we know the world. So, because now, these three categories is what I call our phenomenal experience, just to establish a common language for the future. Whereas consciousness, our experience of being conscious, is our noumenal experience. So our phenomenal experience, these three categories. Now, our phenomenal experience can be also divided in two categories. One category which is shared and one category which is not shared. Let me explain this. If I say there is a flower here, and this flower is a white orchid, right? You would agree that it is true. In other words, the flower is an object that we perceive. It's part of our phenomenal experience. But there is more to it in that sense that you and I agree on it. So this object is subjected to what we call the intersubjective agreement. Right? Whereas, for instance, the thought I am having now, or the picture in my mind, you don't share it. You cannot corroborate it in the way you corroborate that it is an orchid and that it is white. In other words, my thoughts and your thoughts, under most circumstances, perhaps, circumstances in which there is telepathy, but generally speaking, this part of our experience is not subjected to the intersubjective agreement, right? I arrive to the definition of the world. The world is whatever it is that creates this part of our experience which is subjected to the intersubjective agreement. You see? And that's a world, I don't know whether you have a scientific background, but that's a world science studies, right? Because in science, we want peer verification, which is the scientific way to talk about intersubjective agreement. So that defines the world. Now, the question is the world real? So then we have to define what is real. That's a little more complicated, although it seems simple. First, the etymology of the word real is misleading because it comes from the Latin word res, which means a thing. So it would lead us to believe that things are real, right? And that the reality is a set of all things, right? But we have this deep intuition that reality is something else than a mere accumulation of objects in a basket, in the world basket, right? There is something else. When we wake up from a dream, from a night dream, it becomes immediately obvious to us that the dream was an illusion. In other words, that not that the fact that we were dreaming, but that whatever the landscape was, the city, the people that we encounter in the dream were illusion. Right? And then a natural definition of reality would be that which is not an illusion. Right? What is it that leads us to believe? No, not to believe. What is it that leads us to know for certain that the world of our dream was an illusion? It's because, I could leave that for you as a homework, but here is my contention. It's because it has absolutely disappeared. It is nowhere to be found. You see what I mean? Because let's assume that in your dream, you encounter someone and he gives you a $100 bill. And you put this bill in your pocket. Upon waking up, you are not certain whether the dream was an illusion or not, And in order to ascertain it, you go to your trousers, you go in the pocket, and there is a $100 bill that wasn't there the day before. Aha. Right? Then it's not obvious that the dream was an illusion, right? Right? But unfortunately, in most cases, the bank account that we have in the dream doesn't survive our waking up. Right? Yeah? So therefore, an illusion is something that can disappear absolutely. Therefore, that which is real, reality, is that which cannot disappear absolutely. That which never disappears. In other words, something that can disappear is not the reality. For instance, this computer will disappear one day. This body will disappear. Right? They are not the reality. You see, the reality is more substantive than that. Spinoza, who was in fact a sage, who knew what he was talking about, and he was talking about the same thing we talk about here. Spinoza defined a substance, and later on he identifies substance with God and with reality. He defines substance as that the essence of which implies the existence. He says involves, but that which, the nature, the essence, that which is essential in it, its essential feature is that it exists. In other words, that could not possibly not exist. That's the reality. That which could not possibly not exist. That ties to what we have said, because reality is that which is not an illusion, and that which is always present, that which is never disappears, right? Therefore, that which is always present, therefore, that which cannot not exist, right? So we connect this definition of reality with Spinoza. Now, just a little hint. What is it in our human experience which is always present? Obviously, not the phenomenal part of it, because they all come and go. Therefore, the real part of our human experience must be the noumenal part, right? Must be the noumenal part. Because it is that which is always present, that's the real part. But what does the real part mean of our human experience? It means our own reality. You see, the reality of our human experience must be my reality, right? Right? In other words, to put it simply and bluntly, the real I, the real self. You see? So, we were talking about, is the world real? The reality of the world must be this element of the world that never disappears. Now, if we identify with the body is very much part of the world, right? Therefore, the reality of the world and the reality of the body must be the same. So if I identify with the body, it follows that my reality is the reality of the world. And there is something else, is that there is only one reality. I can leave this to you as a homework again, having defined reality, etc. It's interesting to connect the dot by ourselves. But then if there is only one reality, it follows that the reality of my human experience and the reality of the world is the same. You see? And that's answers the first aspect, your first question. Remember your question. I understand your question that I cannot understand that the objects are made of awareness. Forget about awareness. Talk about the reality. Think about the reality of our human experience. Think in terms of reality. You see, because awareness is the reality of our human experience, the real awareness. Because the real awareness is that which is really aware. You see, an illusory awareness could not be really aware. I can prove that to you. Or I can illustrate that to you. Let's assume in your dream you encounter someone and you have a dialogue with this person, right? This person is illusory, right? Therefore, his or her awareness is also illusory, right? Do you believe that this illusory awareness is aware of your words as you interact with this person in your dream? Of course not. Only a real awareness can be really aware, you see. It ties to the fact that there is only one reality. That's the main thing. So the difficulty you had its origin in the fact that you still construed awareness as mind, instead of seeing it as reality. See awareness as a reality which is aware. Reality. Because that's what we are interested in. The real I. The real me. We don't care about the fake me. You see, the only important thing to us is the real I. Who is aware? What is aware? You know? What is really aware? That's the real I. That which is really aware. The reality which is aware. Not that which is allegedly aware. The brain, the body, allegedly. What is the reality of the brain? What is the reality of the body? You see? It is this reality which is aware through all these bodies, all these. We share it. You see, when we understand that we move beyond the shell of the body, the limits of the mind, we have access to a different type of connection with our surroundings and with the people. Of course, you have to think about it and connect the dots.
So I had sent in a question once about the Big Bang and models.
What?
I had sent in a question about the Big Bang and models, how good models of the world are and how complete they have to be. And you said that the model of the Big Bang was a good enough model. So by what you just said, it means it's a model of the world, but it's not an all-encompassing model.
I answered this question in terms of physics.
Yes.
Because when the model we have of the universe flows from the general theory of relativity and a simplification of Einstein's equations that are complex because they are non-linear, and this simplification is what we call spherical equations. And we can move back in time, in reversing, right, the time in this equation. The problem is then the universe shrinks and shrinks. When it becomes very small, then all hell breaks loose, because the model then we are in the realm of quantum mechanics, and the two are not unified, general relativity, and so we cannot go beyond this. The model is no longer accurate. We don't have a satisfactory model for the Big Bang. That's the point.
But it would still only address the world and not consciousness, because when it goes down to a dot,
of course.
Then how come there's a dot?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we can regress Einstein's spherical solutions to the dot. The problem is that before we reach the dot, quantum theory tells us it doesn't work any longer. So before we reach even the dot, which we call the singularity, the model fails. So, but that's physics. It's not.
But let's say we could reach the dot. Just let's say we could. Even then, it wouldn't explain the existence of the dot, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's where the model ends in the world.
We could have a model that explains the existence of the dot also. You see, but this model would have to start from something.
Yeah. So consciousness can never be included in any kind of model of the world, right? Or could it?
I would have to think about that. It could be included as in quantum mechanics as that which triggers the collapse of the state vector, but there are theories like that. But it cannot be explained by a model. Anyway, science is limited to the study of phenomena and to the study of the how of phenomena, not the study of the why, nor the study of the what. So with science we are way remote from consciousness first, and then even more so from questions such as why and what about consciousness. But science is beautiful, believe me. I'm a lover of science. I feel it's very artistic, science. It's beautiful. And I'm not into, this conspiracy theories that you find everywhere on the internet about these fake scientists that you find everywhere on the internet who believe they have found the theory of everything. I mean, no.
Well, I love science too. I wanted to just to know its proper place within, or the limits of it, so that
As far as I
that
know,
explains it.
as far as I know, it's about phenomena. As far as I know.
Could I ask another question? So yesterday, when I talked about gratitude, I'm not sure I understood you right. Did you say there's never any need to express it? It's just one should just feel it. But there's also something.
Let me tell you something. You have a nephew or little boy and a little girl, and you bring them a present that you know they very much wanted, right? And then when they get it, you see the smile and the joy, you know? And what is the most beautiful expression of gratitude? And then the mother says, say thank you to Aunt or to Uncle Francis. And the little boy will say, thank you. You know, but the gratitude was better expressed without wanting to express it. You see?
So how about...
That's what I was trying to say. It's a movement of the heart. And it suffices, in fact. We give that just for this moment of gratitude and this moment of love and of the smile, the communication. Sometimes it's going to be something else. I took my grandchildren. We were in Paris. I was giving a retreat. I had very little time. They came to see me. I take them to the next Toys R Us. They were the three of them, and I give them a budget. And they went to the store, you know. And then they bought their stuff, you know, with the budget. And then we were in the street, and my granddaughter came, and she just took my hand. That was it. And gratitude, that's the one we don't want. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Francis.
But sometimes there are situations where you cannot express it, where it's not immediate. And also,
I'm not saying we should, and I mean, it's nice to do it, you know, if it comes from the right place. You see, it will always find the right place. If it comes from the right place, it will find the right place, and it will express itself in the proper manner. That's all.
Because art also is an expression of gratitude in a way, isn't it? Or music.
Yeah. You ended up with that?
Pardon?
No, go ahead.
Pardon?
You ended up with...
Yeah, now I have to talk. I actually do have a question, or I have an area of question. I don't have a specific question. During the yoga today, what I heard was a suggestion to recognize three aspects of experience. One that doesn't really have a name, being, sensation, and inference, what we infer from the sensation. Which, I guess there's an experiential side to the yoga which comes straight at the sensation, but the words are, of course...
I was talking about the body or the world. And there is our immediate experience of the body, in which there is no model, there is no intervention of linear thought. Our raw experience of the body is made of bodily sensations, mostly. And then, from these bodily sensations, from the culture, from education, there is another body that emerges, which is the inferred body, inferred from all of that. But this body, we have to understand, we never directly experience it. That's why I call it inferred. It's the same thing with the world. We were talking about the world. Our experience of the world is made of sense perceptions. And from these sense perceptions, we infer that there is a world out there. We infer the world out there also from the intersubjective agreement. Because the fact that we agree that there is a flower shows that the flower is independent from each of our minds. Right? Because if my mind is not perceiving the flower, the other mind is perceiving it, so the flower is independent from mind A, because mind B keeps perceiving it. But the same reasoning applies to mind B. So the flower is both independent from both Alice's mind and Bob's mind. Right? Therefore, the flower has some independence from all minds. So the world, but this flower, which is independent from all minds, is inferred from our mind experiences.
Wouldn't it be simpler, or would it be accurate, and in my mind simpler, but accurate to say the eyes are seeing and has an overlay both in the way the brain is wired, the eyes are wired to see an object?
That's a model already.
Of course. We have to use a model to talk about the model. We have a sense of something, and then very natural concept, and then second order, third order concepts on top of it. But the inferred is a conceptual thing, a model. But there's what I would call a natural model, which is the nature of the organism that discovers the edge of a boundary that is accurate if you were to reach out and touch the object, even without touching it. Eyes do that. The little bit I know of brain science is that's actually done in the neurons in the retina. So this idea that there's a separate place between sensation and conception is already a conception that may not be true. That these things, as though suddenly we have this one heavy-handed way of seeing that's inferred, and this other that's, I'm saying that there might be that rather than being a clear boundary, to me it's blurred. At some point I'm very conceptual, and at other points I'm very experiential, but the two are just a range of the same thing.
No, you cannot, no, you cannot prove the experience of a world out there that you don't perceive.
Yeah, exactly.
You can only infer its existence. No matter how you tap dance around this issue.
No, but there's no need to go as far as to
I am not
anything.
in favor either its existence nor its non-existence. That's the beauty of, and that's the position of wisdom. that you don't say, I mean, not of wisdom, I mean of reason, that it's Occam's razor. You know, you cannot. It's useless to make a statement that you cannot verify or falsify through the experience. So the statement, there is an external world, cannot be verified nor falsified. So, for instance, the model that you were alluding to is based upon the premise that there is such a thing as an external world.
No, it's based on extending the studies of how perception works, not at the level of the perceiver, but the mechanics of the camera and the...
All of that is based upon an external world.
No, you have to, because you're saying that there's an internal versus an external. It's just saying it's observed. This is what we observe. It's like saying salt is salty. You're saying, oh, it's an external world. Okay, if you like, it's a sensation. You're making a distinction that doesn't, only if you believe the idea of an external world is the premise that you're going on real. If you just see that the idea of an external world is just another phenomenon that you're perceiving as a phenomenon called a thought phenomenon, there's no difference. It's all the same taste at that point. The taste of your thought is the same as the taste of the sensation with just different degrees of subtlety. If you believe the thought, it's the same as believing the world. But it's the belief thing that makes the difference. It's not whether it's thought or sensation. It's a different way to slice the egg. It's the same egg.
Anyway, so then, without making any determination, I don't see your point.
I don't think I'd gotten to one. Yeah, I agree. There wasn't a point. I actually will pull out the... what my actual issue is, experientially, I have a variety of sensations. And very soon after, following on that, the thought appears of liking and disliking. This one's comfortable, this one's uncomfortable. Delayed by a tiny bit. It's almost as though it's a wave and an after wave. And if I follow the inferred idea of it's comfortable or it's uncomfortable, the labeling, then there's reactivity. And if I just notice it, I end up wondering, well, how do I find, there's the idea that having a good model gives you a way in the world. And what I'm almost hearing from this yoga is trust nature and life and let go of the idea of a compass outside of that. And that's all I'm kind of checking. There's a subtle, if I'm not localized, then the idea that I need to control things to steer it is a very strange idea. It's a weird comedy. It's often unpleasant comedy to do that. And then the question becomes, well, I've built these seemingly once upon a time believed useful inferences, models, that maybe are useless. And before I try to throw the whole thing overboard, are there sort of suggestions about, I don't know how to say this. There's a feeling that's fine underneath it all, under which everything's happening. And that seems to be the home or the refuge or the easiness that's actually all is well, honestly. And but coming here, there's a feeling of when I'm on my own, the analogy is like I'm drinking a nice gentle beer. Coming here, it's like I'm drinking 80 proof whiskey by comparison. It's very potent. And it's lovely, but it's very potent. And then I end up wondering, am I still subtly, accidentally guiding by pleasure and pain and unclear? And I guess what I'm already trying to do is cultivate something where, I guess I'd call it almost living more intelligently, where I know that the awareness isn't coming and going, the phenomena are, and yet I'm not always so sure I know that I'm living that understanding very well. And I'm not so sure I have a good map or compass. That's really all. I mean, the map that keeps appearing seems dubious. I like this, I don't like that. seems to be the default map. I guess I was just, yeah, that's all. It's nice to be here. It's a safe place to let all these feelings happen and arise, and that already is a gift. So it's really nice to be here. I think that's, and regardless.
That was a good question.
Another thing, Mr. President, I would like to say. No, it is really nice to be here, and I'm okay with the uncertainty. Right, part of the message that comes back to me inside is, what's wrong with not knowing? Like, what's wrong with not only figuring that out, but like include this in and not knowing? What's the problem? And the answer when I check is no problem. And yet the mind is very used to having an idea that it'll know what's happening, and it's almost like an addiction or something. Like, I don't even know what it is. There's this idea that a good model will show you the way in life or something. I don't even know what. And I'm still wondering.
It's like learning how to walk. In the beginning, it may have seemed, we don't remember, but it may have seemed very dangerous. The first time you let go of the hand of your mom or of but after a while, it's quite, a few months later, you start running and dancing and
Actually, I think I know what my question is. Since that which you're sharing and talking about is never come, I mean, why the approach of the mind and the inferred model as a way to go talking about this? It's a curious, why is that the traditional way in Advaita of connecting with what's being shared?
I'm not sure it's a traditional way of Advaita. I speak about my experience, and I simply try to find the words based on my culture, upbringing, that can convey and enable the one who are listening to it to relate it to their own experience.
Hello, Francis. My name is Alice. And
Where is Bob?
Just to continue on this yoga, for me it was perfectly clear. As soon as I didn't need to control the mind, the body, and I just allowed the consciousness to go, I actually did the best yoga of a very long time, because I didn't limit the form that I'm being in, called human body. And the fear, because I just had a surgery, so my muscles are quite stiff, I would not do it yet with your guidance, because I just visualized exactly what you said. And there was not body, just the sensation, and then I let the sensation go as well. And suddenly there I was, and it was perfect. So let go of limits, let go of control, and the miracle will happen. Thank you.
That was not a question.
Is it possible?
No, it's
if
okay.
If you allow, is it possible if you...
Everything is possible.
Allow, yeah.
Everything is possible.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been 2 years since I was been here, 2 years. I'm happier, so no question about that. But my question is, happier, but life is not very interesting. Actually, you know, nothing's really interesting. I kind of expect this kind of time I will experience. I kind of take granted for this kind of time because but since I met you, celebration was fascinating. So wow, I changed my mind and let's just see what can I enjoy in this world. But nothing's really interesting. You know, I'm free. I'm healthy. Have little money, time. I have friends, but almost no desire. Most of the time, maybe I interacting with friends, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, watching some YouTube clip, 10 minutes. But after that, not much desire. Because, you know, if I categorize my character nature, if you can consider it, I'm kind of very liberal and but full of fear. Kind of, yeah. I don't know if you can. But anyway, because I was kind of race car driver for many years, and I know it kind of reached. That was my passion. For just example, that was my passion. Traveling, racing car driver, that kind of thing was passion. Fully dedicated to some rich experience, but I'm missing that kind of experience. Maybe racing is fine, just one example, but nothing else is. I just, in other way, if I ask question, can I enjoy just anything? I will now enjoy painting. Let's do it. But or I can enjoy, whether it's a job or hobby doesn't matter. I like to enjoy something. Doesn't matter, but I kind of deep. Wow, just that kind of joy. I know, really, but it's very rare.
Live your day from moment to moment, not with big plans, not with, you may find yourself having a big project, but you have to enjoy being on this project moment to moment. It's important not to have something in the future that is going to cause pain in the now. That's not too good. See at every moment, what is it that I want to do? Perhaps I want to do nothing. Perhaps I want to feel the sun on my skin and breathe the air, or perhaps I want to make breakfast, or perhaps I want to watch the Super Bowl, or perhaps from moment to moment. What is it that I would rather be doing? Where would I rather be? To be attentive to your secret desire, your heart's desire. And then you may feel, okay, there is something that bothers me. I would like to be free from that. And then your enthusiasm is going to lead you in this direction. Yes, you follow your enthusiasm to be free yourself from that fear, or free yourself from this. But then when you don't have the fear, then it's an open playing field. You're on the meadow. When you were a child on the meadow, you didn't worry too much. What am I going to do? That's for adults. If I worry, what am I going to do to be happy? It's too late. I have to be happy first, and do what my happiness dictates. You see, it's not the other way around. So I have to go to the source in me which is the enthusiasm, the heart's desire, because that's a happy place. What does the happy place want to do? And it may not be a big project. Not like, oh, I want to be president. No.
Okay.
Maybe I just want to have a nice piece of toast for our breakfast and a nice tea, just not too strong, not too weak, just with the right amount of milk and sugar in it. Kind of a Zen tea.
Hi, Francis. I somehow lost a logic in the first two questions, and my mind can't stop thinking about it, so I have to ask it. So the first question was about this world being real, and then Fela asked, she added up about the inflation theory, or so that thing about real is something that doesn't disappear. So my mind is asking.
Reality is that which never disappears.
Yes, so that my mind is saying, okay, we are made of stardust, inflation theory, so this matter lasts very long. If you go to inflation theory, it goes to the, like Fela said, to the dot. And consciousness, no evidence.
No, but this is a model in which there is no room for consciousness.
So this is what my mind doesn't understand. So that matter and reality of the world
is only the
definition of the real.
Definition,
which doesn't disappear.
Definition of real, or that which could possibly not exist.
Not exist. So
that which cannot not exist. So, for instance, the universe
exists.
can not exist.
Yes. So it's real.
It's not real.
Okay. I guess I don't understand.
That which is real is that the non-existence of which is impossible. For instance, this computer, its non-existence is possible because before it was created, it wasn't exist.
But it consists of elements that created this universe.
What?
It consists of the elements that created the universe. So these basic elements are real then. The photons and electrons. I'm just saying that.
Well, not really, because there are excitations of the quantum field, the particles, and in a non-excited state, there is creation and annihilation of the particles. So any particle could possibly not exist. Therefore, matter as we know it as a whole is not real.
Yes,
right?
It's very important for me to realize that.
Any particle could possibly not exist because it's an excitation above the ground state, right?
Yeah, like quantum, okay.
So, therefore, because it could possibly not exist in a non-excited state, according to the definition of reality, it's not real.
Okay.
So matter as a whole is not real.
Just I guess the question is its reality kind of lasts longer than what I know about consciousness.
Descartes says something very beautiful. He said, there is something real. I don't know what. I'm certain there is something real.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
It just seems to me kind of like that matter is real and consciousness is real. That, kind of like full, small, like.
Yes, we intuitively know that consciousness is real. Because let's assume I tell you there is no consciousness in this moment. You would just laugh at me, right?
Yes.
In other words, consciousness is the only thing, if we call it such, the existence of which is 100% certain. Everything else could be an illusion. But even if everything we perceive was an illusion, perceiving consciousness would still be real. The consciousness that perceives the illusory dream is real.
I would like to tie in like hers and his and mine together. So you always say there is no object or subject. So we don't see an object. There is only seeing, or there is only hearing. Or you always say consciousness is the one that reality is the one that hears these words now.
Yes,
so
yes.
Can you explain that a little bit so that we can all understand? Like, there is an experience.
Yes.
Right now we are talking to each other, so there is an experience, so there is a reality of something here. And can you explain the reality of what's going on here? So that's what the question is, I guess. She's having, I'm having, that we are getting lost over and over. There is a sound, there's a hearing of a sound, there's awareness of hearing. I understand all that, but I just cannot tie it in my mind how that happens. And I believe she has the same problem, I believe he has the same problem.
Think only about your problems, that's plenty. So, as I speak, the words come and go, but there is something that doesn't. There is something that was before the word, during the word, and that remains after the word. There was this Zen master called Wai Hai, meaning, I think, the great pearl. Wai Hai? Wai Hai. The great pearl. That's what they say. And we have some transcript of this dialogue. And there was this question put to him, that's the first. When the sound ceases, does hearing cease? And Wai Hai says, hearing doesn't cease. So that which was before the sound, that which is during the sound, that which is after the sound, you see. Before the sound, or let's say before the thought, there was no thought. After the thought, there is no more any thought, at least this thought. So, during the thought, what was the real nature of the thought? The thought doesn't have an existence which is independent from the consciousness that perceives it. You're following me? Another way to express that is that you can have the consciousness without the thought. You cannot have the thought without the consciousness. So that creates a hierarchy in the level of reality. You see? So it could be said that the consciousness is more real than the thought. So the ultimate reality is that which is more real than anything else. In other words, the ultimate reality is that can exist without anything else, but without which nothing could exist. That's another definition. I leave it you as a homework to see that it is identical to the other one. A little mathematical or logical mind game. Another interesting also little exercise is to convince yourself that having defined, let's say, substance in the Spinoza way, or let's put it reality, that's a different reality. Reality as that, the non-existence of which is impossible, to reach the conclusion that there can be only one reality. That's also an interesting mind game to play. Yes?
Francis, your definition that reality is that which cannot not exist. Why would you say that consciousness was real on that basis? How would you understand it to not be able to not exist? What evidence is there for that?
Okay, let me try to go into that. First, would you agree that consciousness is not an object, like a flower, or even like a thought?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know I'm conscious. I'm not sure what is the nature of that consciousness.
If you are not sure,
it may be a thought. Or it is whatever causes the thought, which is still part of
okay. Let's
the individual apparatus.
Okay. It may be a thought. So it would imply that a thought can perceive another thought.
Why not?
Is that your experience?
I'm not sure how to describe my experience, but I know I perceive thoughts. I don't know what I am. But that doesn't lead me to
So, no, in other words,
a consciousness that cannot not exist, for instance.
No, but we are not... what we are dealing with right now is that consciousness is not a thought, and you say it could be a thought. Okay? Then, if consciousness, the nature of a thought is to be perceived, right? So if consciousness were a thought, what would be the thought that the consciousness that perceives this thought?
The individual human consciousness, the subjectivity of a human body.
It would be another thought, right?
I guess you might call it a thought. I don't know exactly what you would call it.
Because what I am hinting at is this, is that if you make the statement that consciousness is a thought, and then, because it is in the nature of a thought to be perceived, right? So, if consciousness is a thought, let's say thought A, right? Because thought A, it's in its nature to be perceived, it requires a consciousness, we call B, to perceive thought A. But in turn, you make the statement that consciousness is a thought. So this consciousness B should be a thought. Let's call it thought B. But because it is in the nature of a thought to be perceived, it requires a consciousness, C, to perceive it. So where does the buck stop in this regression?
I don't see logically why it needs to go beyond the human body-mind necessarily, logically. I have the experience of a thought. What is I? It is whatever is experiencing that thought from the perspective of my private mind. As you say, the noumenal is private, and that's all I know for sure. And so you take it a step further and say that consciousness, if consciousness is real, reality must be a greater reality over everything. Therefore, there's only one reality. But I'm not sure how you make that real leap. I am conscious, I think, but my consciousness seems to be private.
Okay.
There's where there's the gap.
Yeah. So then we have to investigate what is the evidence that you seem to have that which perceives your thought is private.
I have no evidence that it isn't.
Yes, but you don't have any evidence that it is, and I am asking you, why would you then put your hand on the scale in favor of this hypothesis?
I think we've gotten to this point before in this discussion, and it still seems like there should be a logical way to understand the oneness of consciousness. But it doesn't seem that there is, that it really is a case where there's no evidence either way. Except that my experience is evidence. And the only experience, it may not be conclusive, the only experiential evidence I have is of a private consciousness that interacts, but it's a private consciousness.
No, you don't have the experience of a private consciousness. You claim you have the experience of a private consciousness, but you don't have.
Is it because I don't know for sure that it's private?
Yeah. You make the claim, but when I ask you to bring the goods, you don't. What are the goods? Where is the evidence?
What I tend to say when I think through this is that there's overwhelming circumstantial evidence.
That's lawyer bullshit.
Francis, don't you think that's also scientific bullshit? What is the scientific consensus?
I don't care about the scientific consensus because these guys are not scientists in my eyes.
Okay, but you did say that's
extremely soft science, those who make these claims about consciousness.
But Francis, you talk about the scale. If I put the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, intersubjectively verified by everyone I've ever met, that they feel that, they experience private consciousness, that's one side of the scale. The other side is, Francis says, and other people say,
no.
Consciousness is unlimited and not personal and not private.
No. We have to make a distinction between mind and consciousness. I would say mind is a part of our human experience which is perceived. Consciousness is the reality that perceives. And having, defined reality as the best we can. The question is, based upon that which is perceived, phenomenal experience, can we make the determination regarding that which perceives? I am going to even extend this question. Based upon that which is perceived, can we make any determination about that which perceives?
Only a subjective determination, our best guess based on whatever kind of evidence we can, as we try to understand the world and our experience of life. That's what we do. So it may not be adequate, it may not be convincing, and it may not be conclusive.
What do you mean by understand the world? Because, you know, the purpose of science, and I assume that that's what you are referring to, is not to understand the world in the sense of, as I said, understanding what it is or why it is so. It is simply to describe it, to have models that describe how it works, so that having this model we can predict the outcome of some experiments with some level of reliability. But it's not the goal of science, or the purpose of it is never to answer the question, what? What is it? Or why is it so? That's beyond the scope.
But you know, I'm not really talking about science. I'm really talking about as a human being trying to understand what's going on.
If you talk as a human being, talk as consciousness.
As a conscious human being?
Aha. What comes first, the human being or consciousness? In your experience?
I don't remember. But the best guess would be...
At every moment, what comes first? I'm not asking you about the past.
I think it's indeterminate. I mean, I couldn't say.
Okay, that's very interesting. Could there be consciousness without you noticing that you're a human being? Or could there be a human being without consciousness?
They seem to come together. I mean, that's our experience. I don't mean to speak for anyone else, but that's what people generally tend to say.
Where is a human being when you dream to be a bird and you fly above the city?
A human being dreaming.
Is it there?
Well, I'm not...
that's very important.
I'm not specifying the reality of anything real.
Who or what... but you make a claim that while you are a bird flying above the city, there is a human being. My question is, who or what is doing the experience of this human being, or is it an inference?
I wake up in the morning, I remember...
No.
I remember the
You are
dream.
no longer flying. You are no longer flying. While you are flying, you are making the claim that there is a human being flying with his two wings. What is the evidence of this human being?
I experienced it. I remember the experience.
No, that's a bird.
No, I experienced being the bird, and the next morning I woke up and remembered the experience.
The next morning, what you experience is a memory.
So my best guess is I'm a human being while I'm dreaming, and I experience flight in my dream, and that's a wonderful thing about dreams.
Yeah, but you bring the human being into consciousness, whereas in fact there is only consciousness experiencing the flight. There is no human being there. And the human being is a free adjunct that you add to the experience, but that was never there in the experience. You add it after the fact.
Trying to make sense of it.
Yes, exactly. What you bring in is a model of a dreaming human being.
That's right.
That's a model. Why be attached to the model?
Why not?
Because a model is simply a belief. It is valid only as long as it is efficient. A scientist is not attached to his model. Because if tomorrow a scientist comes with a new model, he's going to ask, is it more efficient? Is it better? If yes, he's going to be happy to jettison the old model. No attachment is like a better car.
I think that's where this discussion really leads. And
how ready are we to let go of the old model?
right, right.
And how can I ascertain that the new car is better?
So it sounds like
More comfortable,
yeah.
more powerful, more safe, more fun to drive, more eye turnings for the girls.
I do understand your point.
So why not test drive the new model?
You know, though, one thing that
Since it is the same price.
one thing that bothers me is that it sounds like you're saying this belief works better.
No. I'm saying feel free to test drive the new car.
The new belief.
Because it's going to be a provisional belief, right? And because you first have to see that the one you were attached was already a belief. That's the first thing. You have to understand that it was just a model that you had inherited, but that this model has had no supporting evidence. That's the point, because what we didn't reach in our conversation is this understanding from you that the evidence you believe to have is not that good. You see, as long as you believe I have strong evidence, there is no, as long as you believe my car is the best car in the world, and this thing is a lemon over there. It is not reliable, it is heavier, it is slower, it pollutes more, it's ugly. So why would I even try to test drive this car? Because I know for certain that it is lousy. I mean, I'm driving a Ferrari. Why would I test drive this Kia? I'm talking for the expert here.
I do understand that point. I'll just throw this Let me throw the first question out and then pass the mic on. The first question I had was, how can you be sure, or what makes you think that reality is something that cannot not exist? I mean, we can say, I'm conscious, but can we say consciousness is timeless, and on what basis do you say it cannot not exist?
Reality. Yeah, I cannot prove it to you. In the same way, I cannot prove that to you that there is consciousness.
I experience consciousness. I don't experience consciousness being unable not to exist.
No, but yeah, but
Prove it to me experientially just by asking the question.
I am just saying that I cannot prove to you that there is consciousness. But I can point at it, and people who hear me, some will be satisfied and say, yes, I agree with you, and it comes from my experience, and I agree with that. Others would say, no, I don't think so. I say, okay, you are hearing my voice, fine, but it's a free country. I'm not trying to persuade them that there is such a thing as consciousness. Now, jumping to reality. My teacher used to say, nothing comes out of nothing. Descartes used to say, there is something, I don't know what I don't know what it is. Another philosopher said, there is something rather than nothing. I cannot prove it to you that there is something rather than nothing. In the same way that I cannot prove to you that there is consciousness, but what I'm trying to relate is some deep, let's call it intuition for the time being. Deep intuition that there is something that underlies everything, that unites, underlies, creates, whatever. By the way, if we refer to the physical models, the ones that work, I'm talking about physics, right? I'm not talking about soft sciences. The ones that work have at their foundation some form of this intuition. And that's why they were so fruitful, I mean, that's my contention. But there is some background. So, even in the theory of relativity, because a physicist would tell you, no, it's a backgroundless theory, but in fact, there is obviously a background. But that's a different story. But, so I am referring to this intuition of reality. You could say, okay, there is no reality, fine. There is nothing. You can say there is nothing, fine. But when you say it, to me, it's something already. You see? At the moment there is something, there is being. Parmenides said, well, basically there are two types of people. Those who say that there is being, and those who say there is not. And he said the second path. I leave it to these idiots who, I don't know what he says, who are like a blind and deaf, and it's not even worth, debating it. It's a little bit like the solipsists. The solipsists say, okay, only my mind exists for himself. To himself, he cannot prove himself to be wrong. To everybody else, they see what a kind of idiot he is. So then these are the two very deep intuitions. One, there is consciousness. One, there is reality. And it is easy to see that they are not unrelated. And we can try to convince ourselves that consciousness is real, to see that at least to what we call consciousness, there is an element of reality, to speak like Einstein, attached to it. There is an element of reality inherent in consciousness. The final and the hypothesis to be tested is that they are one and the same. Consciousness equals reality. And then all we need to do, we don't need, through the sheer power of intelligence, to reach this, to make this determination, although it can be done. For some, it's a path. But it's not a path for all. Unfortunately, it's not the only one, because there is the experimental path, in which we don't have to reach this certainty. All we have to do is to be open to it as a possibility, and then to check it out experientially in our lives. And then there will be an accumulation of evidence up until we reach this lower threshold of preponderance of evidence or overwhelming evidence beyond that.
Thank you.
Super Bowl time.